Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a fascinating guest tonight, Sunil Aggarwal, who is with the AIM Institute up in Seattle, integrative medicine clinic, and works in palliative care with hospices and hospitals up there, and a longtime cannabinologist, a longtime advocate and studier of cannabis. A fascinating conversation, so stay tuned for that. But for now, let's bring on the infamous dancing cannabis leaves.
I feel the force.
Okay, if you or a loved one are looking for help finding a doctor who can help you get a medical marijuana permit anywhere in the United States, from sea to shining sea, or even out in Alaska and Hawaii, give us a call at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. If you have other questions about cannabis, you can call us at 503-235-4606. Without further ado, here is our fascinating interview. Keep watching and help us restore hemp. Good night. I'd like to welcome Dr. Sunil Aggarwal to our show. Dr. Sunil, thanks for coming on. I've been following your career for many years, and I don't recall meeting in person very often, except at the Seattle Hemp Fest. But I appreciate you coming on. How are you doing today?
I'm so good. I'm so glad to finally get some one-on-one time with you, Paul, and your Bill, your team. I've heard about your show for so long, and it sounds like I was like 17 years old when you started it. So it's amazing that you be part of an institution that's as old as my adult life. You know?
Yeah, I think I was 37. Yeah, 37 that time. Well, here we are, and you're a medical doctor. You're also you're in the Department of Geology. You're a hospice and palliative medicine.
Yeah, not geology, which is rocks. Geography, which is place. Yeah,
I knew that's a lot different.
I wish I knew geology.
geography.
I love geology, but I can't claim any faculty in geology. Otherwise, you'd have to ask.
Right. Well, you are a hospice and palliative medicine and physical medicine and rehabilitation physician and a medical geographer.
That's all. That's true. That's all.
And you started the AIM Institute, and AIM stands for Advanced. Go ahead and tell me.
Advanced Integrative Medical Science Institute. AIMS, Advanced Integrative Medical Science Institute. We do medical care, research, and education there.
We had Joy Becker on, and she's working there too. It's been a few years though. So you're also a cannabinologist. Is that the right way to say that?
I self-proclaimed.
That's your website too, cannabinologist.org.
Yeah, I got that domain at some point. I just thought that was a good way to.
I think it's great. Explain what a medical geographer does.
The geographers are people that's there's human geography, there's physical geography, economic geography. There's different types of geography. The geography that I'm involved in is under the field of human geography. So looking at the human environment relationship, how do humans interface with the near surface of the earth, with space, with place, environment, That could be anything from political geography to economic geography, social geography, cultural geography, and then there's medical geography. And the medical simply denotes that we look at geographies related to health and disease, access to care, access to therapeutics, therapeutic resources, disease ecology, things like that. So medical geographers kind of take a geographic lens to public health issues. You could say it that way too.
Explain the Ames Institute. I'm really a fan of integrative medicine, and I understand that's what. And you're still there now, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. 7 years now. My interest in medicine will always
the
be.
Ames Institute. You were one of the co-founders.
I am a co-founder, yes, co-founder and current co-director. I started it in 2018 with my partner, Dr. Liana Standish, who is a naturopathic doctor, an ND. I'm an MD, M for medical, N for naturopath. So we both come at medicine from these different sort of orientations, but we meet in the middle. Integrative medicine. That's what integrative medicine is you bring the best of all medical systems together to optimize the health care for the patient. So that could be complementary and integrative approaches like acupuncture or herbs or nutraceuticals or phytoceuticals or cannabinoids and cannabis. Herbal cannabis is a naturopathic plant medicine, herbal medicine. Let's do diagnostics and laboratories and pharmaceuticals and high-tech genomic analyses, liquid tumor biopsies from the blood. That's allopath. So we mix that together, and that's called integrative medicine. That's a term coined by Andrew Weil, Dr. Andrew Weil, who's an early cannabis researcher as well in his days when he was at Harvard. So that we wanted to create a system of medicine where you could kind of have both types of care under one roof, and it's specifically interested in patients with chronic and serious illness, so cancer and pain and psychiatric conditions and that kind of thing. So we are a specialty integrated, though we do primary care as well, but we have a special focus on things like that, and we like to do cutting edge therapies like ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, medical cannabis education, intravenous plant medicines like curcumin for cancers or artesunate, and things like that, things that are on the leading edge. And we try to engage our patients to become subjects in our outcome studies so that we can track our findings and publish them or report them so that we move the field forward. That's the dream. That's basically what you would do if you were in a university hospital or university academic center like OHSU you have in Portland. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing things in the areas of psychedelics and cannabis,
they won't let you do that there.
They are now. I mean, things have changed, over the last decade, or you couldn't even mention these things in your applications, which I hardly did. Going into all my training, but so we were both kind of in a place where it's like, well, this is better for us just to create our own thing, so we won't have to worry about all that. People worried about the the stigma or the politics or the legalities, and there's certainly we're legal and above board and licensed, so we have to worry all risks, but you can manage them with good legal advice, good structures, and good consent processes between patients. So that's what it is, and I've been really happy to have that kind of system of care of a clinic, outpatient. It's an outpatient clinic only. We have done some home visits to telemedicine in person. Some of our team are licensed in other states, but mostly Washington, but we do remote education visits, teleeducation to other states or countries even. And that's the kind of care I would want for myself and my family. So that's why and we wanted to create more humanistic approach, not just like, medicine where you're just in and out and people don't look at you whole person, emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, all the dimensions. You need to have that's to optimize healing and to improve the connection between the doctor or the provider and the patient. You want it to be more than a little bit more human, well-rounded. that optimizes the chances of healing. And I also do palliative care, where that relationship is very important, and attending to those emotional, spiritual needs are really critical when you're dealing with life-threatening illness. So that's kind of a little bit about it. And we take insurance, even Medicare, and some Medicaid for some patients. We don't bill everything to insurance that we do, because some of the things we do are outside of the realm of insurance, but we have tried to be accessible and not just a boutique kind of operation where, you know, and no, it could be better, but but it's kind of part of our mission. So I just wanted to mention that.
Well, I'm glad you did. I'm admire that breadth. How many people are working now in the Ames Institute, and about how many patients do you see, just out of curiosity?
We have thousands of patients. I don't remember since we started what our patient count is now. And our staff size has ebbed and flowed. It's like, if you looked at before 2024, you know, I don't remember how many contracting physicians we had. It could have been like, you know, 5 or 6. But we're kind of smaller now. There's still, like, I think there's probably 5 contracting folks now, a resident, 2
Okay.
directors. But everybody is not full time, like 1 day a week or 2 days a week. So we're smaller. But I think we kind of try to meet all the needs that we can meet with our team, and if not, we refer them to other clinics. You know, we like to collaborate with others in our area. But yeah, I can't even tell you the current. That's been shifting so much.
That's
We actually got
okay.
through a lot of changes. Yeah, we went through a lot of change. I wanted to just mention to your listeners and viewers that last year the healthcare industry went through a huge cyber attack. Those of us who are taking insurance, the United Healthcare changed cyber attack. It led to hearings in Congress, but it shut down half of all insurance, medical and dental claims processing in the country for months.
Wow.
So
I did
just
not
kind
know
of,
that.
yeah. So it was quite a, you know, it's kind of the future. The AI cyber attacks shut down your library, shut down your hospitals. And so the insurance industry got shut down, which means doctors who rely on that got, you know, under a lot of financial stress. But we made it through. But that was one of the examples of a change. And I'm really happy that we don't have, like, they've made some safeguards, but people should know about the challenges of you know, cybersecurity in this day and age. So I just wanted to mention it.
Well, let's go a little bit farther back here, Sunil. Let's talk about how you became a doctor. When did you first become interested in medicine and start studying to become a doctor, and become interested in cannabis and become a cannabinologist?
Doctoring was kind of in my blood. My dad's a doctor, in nuclear medicine, VA hospital career. I retired from that. So I grew up around, I mean, several of his friends were doctors, Indians or South Asians. I'm an Indian American. They were overrepresented in medicine. And I don't know exactly why that is, if there's a long tradition of that in India being a, you know, hallowed profession. I don't really know. But so it's kind
Maybe
of
it
like a
had
thing.
something to do with the visa process. You know, if you're a doctor, oh, we need doctors, let them in. I think that's
That's
the
true.
case.
That's true. That's right. The Taft-Hartley Act of the 64, 63, the 60s
Yeah.
did create openings or visas for specialized, you know, professions. But I would say even prior to that, and there's been this kind of thing, but I'm sure that pushed it. But then not just in America, though. If you look at like Indian doctors in Canada or South Africa or like other places in the world, there's a organization called the Global Organization of Physicians of Indian Origin, GOPIO. I have their book and their directory, and somebody had given me once, and it's like apparently it's a global thing, like not just American.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, I thought, well, medicine's cookie cutter. It's a recipe. I want to innovate. I want to do something unique or new to push the field forward if I'm going to do medicine. But I was really also drawn to value debate. And I thought I'd be a lawyer or a human rights lawyer or diplomat. I was really interested in the ethical and how to treat people, dignity and that kind of thing. But then I got interested in science and chemistry, and but I was always interested in humanities. So I think I got into medicine because or a pre-med path ultimately because I realized that all my interests in humanity, especially religious studies and philosophy, I could kind of, and then my love for chemistry and molecules and just how things work and just the beauty of math and science. I thought, well, medicine, you get to join the two, you get to put it into the service of a human being, and so I thought I would go down that route, but I really, I mean, I can't remember. Yeah, at some point I decided I would do that or just keep my pre-med, but I didn't want to just be a doctor. I wanted to be a doctor scientist, a physician scientist. And so that's kind of the track I took. It was not just medical school. That's why I have this PhD in geography, medical geography, because I wanted to try to do something outside of just the memorization of medical school or whatever the hard, grueling days. I was like, well, if I want to make sure I'm trying to learn, bring something in. And so what I wanted to bring in was cannabis and psychedelics because, well, in general, alternative approaches, but those approaches to me, when I kind of came across them through my philosophy friends, were quite kind of just powerful, and it felt unique in their ability to, ease, as Dr. McArea used to call it, an easement. Cannabis is an easement. He would say Todd McArea was like the father of medical marijuana.
I don't know if you know it, but when Todd was dying, I met him at the White House smoke-in 1978 when I was 18 years old. But I got to know him when I moved to Oregon. But before he passed away, he sold me his practice, and I operated out of his office in El Cerrito for about 9 months before I ended up selling it back to his daughter. I had Dr. Orvald, our doctor up there in Washington, and I would fly down there for 3 or 4 days each month to see his patient base. But I operated that for about a year. And Dr. McArea has been on this show many times, and he spoke at our Hempstock Festival. And we have, he's a great guy. But anyway, I just have to tell you.
I'm so happy to hear that. I didn't know. I worked with him in his El Cerrito office in 06 or 07. I can't remember what year. It was before his cancer diagnosis. I just wanted to learn from him and see how he did his practice, and wrote volcano vaporizer prescriptions on his prescription pad, and taught patients about migraines and cannabis, and it just was such a. I read all of so much of his writings. I've actually even was the first person to check out his papers from the National Library of Medicine.
Oh.
So his entire papers and effects and are now part of the National Institute of Health, NIH, National Library of Medicine, which runs PubMed.
Do you know if they have his video archive? He videotaped everywhere. I don't know if you remember that, but he carried a video camera and videotaped everywhere and interviewed everybody.
He did, yeah. I think there were so many boxes, so they hadn't completely finished cataloging, so they didn't let me see everything, but they showed me what they had so far accessioned, and there was some video in there, tapes, but there could be more. You could look it up. It's all on the catalog now. It must be cataloged now. That was 10 years ago that I was in the library reading about his early days at Haverford, or his thesis in Oregon at Reed College.
Yeah.
On authoritarianism. That was what his thesis was on. Authoritarian personality traits or something like that. And and he was an NIH employee, NIMH, back in the 60s.
Yeah, he
so
was
they have a special
high management position for a while, I think.
Yes, he's a brilliant guy, and so my fiance now, she's half Japanese, like Todd as well, and her grandfather was a doctor in LA, and they were in the same Japanese American league.
Oh, okay.
I found a newsletter where the names are listed, so it's like same kind of universe. It's just I kind of understand a little bit more about him now. Anyway, he was very inspiring, and I felt that easement. What's that?
To me as well. I often use a phrase and attribute it to him about modern medicine today is monomolecular mercantile madness. I repeat that
I
one
love that.
quite
That's the
frequently.
best one.
Yeah.
Yes, monomolecular mercantile madness. I remember. I think you said that in our
Yeah, we were in
Idaho
the
thing.
Idaho conference a month or two ago.
Yeah, that's right. I love that one. Yeah, he had so many good turns of phrases.
Yeah.
I remember urine testing. He was he would say it's divining your moral worth through excrement. He put Europharmacomancy is a term he put out there. He just kind of come up with all these. He was
He was
really
poetic.
good with words.
Yeah.
Very poetic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And him brave, and he had to face the medical board of California for being an early pioneer in cannabis, and that's it's given me some strength today with the challenges that I face. So I guess I'm just saying that, like, looking back on my experiences with cannabis in '90 when I first had my own direct experience, which it was illegal, it was banned, but I trusted my friends, and I had grown up in a place where Just Say No was very
How
strong
old were you
prohibition
then?
in Oklahoma.
You were in Oklahoma.
I was
Whoa.
Well, I grew up there, but then I came to Berkeley. So
Oh, okay.
I'm an Okie from Muskogee,
Uh-huh.
and in Muskogee we don't smoke marijuana in Muskogee,
I
as they
remember that. I
famously.
grew up in Dallas, so we went to Oklahoma. And
Oh,
actually, my father's side of the family, who I really wasn't part of, had family and were political representatives in Oklahoma. But
what was their last name? What were their last name?
Stanford,
Oh,
but they one was a judge, one was a state legislator, and they got my grandfather into West Point. My grandfather graduated from West Point in the same class as Eisenhower, just before World War One. So I won't go on
World War
about him. This
One.
is a show about you, but I
Wow,
have some background in Oklahoma.
that's so cool. Well, I kind of note there is a cultural. I recognize your Tennessee, or not Tennessee, Texan.
Yeah,
The Dallas on I-35. Goes straight up to Norman, where
yeah.
I lived for 2 years after I moved. But yeah, Dallas was our nearest big city, and so we went to Dallas a lot, and it's just part of our Dallas Cowboys and
You
all
ever
that
go to
stuff.
Turner Falls?
I have been to Turner Falls. Yes, yes.
I remember going there as a kid. I enjoyed that.
That's yeah, that's so cool. I went there, I was a little bit older. It was a little out of the way, but I did visit it. I love that whole area, and I still have family, and I was actually involved in the Oklahoma Medical Cannabis Initiative.
Their
The
law is
one.
very open, isn't it? I think they have a
Yeah.
higher percentage of medical patients in Oklahoma than
Yeah,
other states.
we were the most open because when I was on the advisory there, the guys who wrote it were like, hey, this is what we're thinking. What do you think about that? That leave it up to the doctor. And I said, no, that's exactly the right way to think about that. This is actually what Dr. Mikaria believed too, or any other condition for which marijuana provides relief, the famous language in Proposition 215. Exactly. Which he was responsible for, apparently. And anyway, so I kind of was like, well, that's the same thing as true now. And so they actually got it in there, and that did. And they also had low barriers to economic barriers for the industry, the producers and the distributors, and all the other cannabis dispensing. So they made it really. It was more democratic. It wasn't this high. You have to have lots of money and in order to get medical cannabis or see specialized doctors. So they really. Anyway, so Oklahoma went from the most draconian marijuana laws in the Western Hemisphere to some of the most open, at least for medical use. And I think that's kind of an amazing, everyone should appreciate that who is interested in cannabis, how fast things turn on a dime. Like something that was so, people I knew of life sentences handed out to
Will
folks.
Foster. Will Foster had a life sentence for 2 joints, selling 2 joints, I think it was.
It was a little bit more. He had 90 plus years. He was in Tulsa. He was growing cannabis in his basement. He was a veteran, and he was using it for his health. And I don't think he was really. I don't even know if he was involved in money sales. Mostly, he was self-medicating, and it was his way of finding access because there was no access points. And so I think it was like 96 or. And there was several other cases. A guy named Jimmy Montgomery, who'd been in jail in Oklahoma too, and he was in a wheelchair, and they incarcerated him, and he got like serious infections and illness in the. So we were very draconian, and there were definitely like on the books life sentences for making hash, for example. They passed that one even more recently than that. So it was an incredibly bad place. They would really throw the book at you. They didn't see any rational reason why anybody would want to engage with cannabis, aside from just social mayhem or whatever, so or delinquency. So they were really serious about that. But then it turned into like all the old post office that we used to be our mail place for mail in Muskogee became a medical cannabis dispensary. Like all these like areas that were used to be these official things, like, and there was no business activity, they became cannabis businesses. So anyway, I just think that's a amazing thing. So, but going into California, as I did in 97 and through 99, I definitely didn't really, I thought marijuana was like, something that was going to destroy my brain cells and make me dumb.
That's
And
what they
I
told
really,
us.
yeah, I had no reason to doubt it. I knew some people growing up that were like, call themselves stoners, and they seemed too like goofy. So I was like, maybe you're just but really, like, I had such a stereotype in my head. Like, it doesn't mean that they're dumb or ignorant. I mean, and there are people who misuse things too, for sure. But anyway, I realized in 99 that a lot of that was just a bunch of crap, and actually it can be really helpful and pleasant, and the easement came to my mind. So that's why I was really interested in like what exactly is happening on a molecular level in my brain to change this state from into more of an expansive awareness, or more relaxed. I didn't know, and then I started reading about endocannabinoid system, which had been discovered in '88, the endo CB1 receptor, and the 92 and anandamide, and so it was. And here I am in '99. So these were just kind of new discoveries in neurochemistry and biology. And I went to some lectures in '01, and met Fred Gardner, who was, Micaria's, also
I
big
know Fred
fan
really
and
well.
supporter. Of course, yeah. And so I met him in '01 in my biology classroom. 2050 Valley Life Sciences. We had an evening, what Dare Didn't Teach You, student group, and they invited Fred, who was at the time district attorney, press secretary for San Francisco. Terrence Hallinan was the San Francisco DA, and Fred was working in his office as a communications guy or something. And so he came and talked to us, the students. Jeff Jones was there, and so was a professor, David Presti. And so Presti just drew the structures of cannabinoids on the chalkboard and explained receptors and signaling, and explained why, the medical marijuana had passed in '96 in California, and everybody knew the Oakland Cannabis Buyers Club. And if you were interested in cannabis, people would get cannabis from there, and it would leak into the rest of if you didn't have a medical card, it was still out there, and it was known to be very good quality. And anyway, all of that, I started understanding then that the multiple sclerosis and pain patients and nausea patients, from cancer chemotherapy and HIV/AIDS, all of that, the reason they were getting relief was because there was a actual receptor system in the body that regulated mood, appetite, memory, inflammation, pain perception, like so many different areas, and that the cannabis plants chemicals were involved in stimulating those receptors. And that was like, oh, I get it. It's like, it's not a bunch of fake news, that there's a medical utility. Obviously there is, because there's a science that explains it. Not that even if we didn't have a science, I guess you could still make these claims, but it really helped to link it in my head, like this was actually a real thing, and a real basis to it. So I went and met the doctor at UCSF who discovered the nature of endocannabinoid signaling in his lab. Because I was working at UC San Francisco as a research student in my last semester at Berkeley, and I went to his lab Roger Nicole was his name. They discovered something that had never been seen in neuroscience before. So everyone knows about serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, all these neurotransmitters. They get released from one neuron and they go to the other neuron, presynaptic, postsynaptic, and they carry a signal. They do a chemical bond, and then they do a electrical impulse, and that's how signals are transmitted. And whether that's your pleasure or whatever reward. Anyway, so then it turns out it's not just going one direction. There are things going the opposite direction in the other direction. And that's called endocannabinoid signaling. And that is the only system that we knew in the body that was actually going the opposite way at the brain neuron junctions. And I just thought that was
regulating
so cool.
the other neurotransmitters.
Right. I mean, if you create any kind of system, like even a bridge, Da Vinci bridge, you have to have a system where the loads are distributed. You don't put all the load in one way. You have to have a way for the system to give feedback. Hey, too much give here, too little give here. I mean, it was obvious that such a system would need to be there, but nobody ever really knew what it was. I mean, and because the old teaching up until the 90s was, this is how signals move. They go from A to B, and that's it. There's no like, hey, B is saying that's enough from you, A. I want to hear from C and D and E. Nobody really had an awareness of this level of intelligence. So cannabinoid science, endocannabinoid science, studying how THC works on the brain, allowed us to discover this whole new signaling system, a homeostatic feedback system. I just thought that was so cool and like a kind of a big story that nobody knew about. And anyway, so that's kind of when I thought, okay, I need to research this. And then when I go to, actually Fred Gardner said to me, when you go to medical school, if you're interested in that, you need to tell your professors about this, study it, talk about it. He was already like, here's a young what's that?
Yeah, proselytized son.
Yeah, he was like, oh, this is some young pre-med guy. He knows a little bit about cannabis. So if he's going to go to the University of Washington, I didn't even have an admission. I didn't have any place to go. I was still, doing my applications and interviews and everything. So yeah, by the time that happened, and the next year, I did actually meet with cannabinoid researchers as part of my interviews at UW, including a professor named Nefi Stella, who was involved in the lab in Irvine that discovered 2-AG. 2-AG is another endocannabinoid, the second endocannabinoid, 2-acylglycerol. It's another endocannabinoid that was discovered in a lab down there in UC Irvine. And the doctor that was, or research scientist that was a postdoc there, he became a professor at University of Washington. And he interviewed me, and he supported my application, and I got into medical school in 2002. And I got involved in a MD PhD program, which means we're going to fund your medical degree, no tuition, we'll actually pay you a stipend from the federal government, NIH supported, and some private donors, and we will let you spend 4 years or 5 years or however long doing any research, any field of your choice. Wow. So it was like, hey, we want the next generation of doctors that are going to actually spend time, not going to just get involved in business and private practice, but actually try to and with tons of loans, because people come out with hundreds of thousands of dollars of loans. Yeah. So they're like, okay, if you don't get burdened by loans, what can you do, for the field of medicine? So that's when I started thinking about geography, and I was one of the first, probably, I think the first person in this national program to do geography as my specialty, not neuroscience. I kind of got a little, though I was doing a lot of neuroscience and everything, I realized, gosh, even if I discover a new molecule in the laboratory, will this actually, like monomolecular mercantile medicine, who will actually benefit from that? How long will it take to actually help people right now, or who can afford it, or, all the complexities? I was already realizing that things are a lot out of reach for many people. So I like the idea of plant medicines and herbals because it's cheap and it's accessible. Anybody can grow a plant, nearly. It's easier. And so I thought, it would be great to go into a field where I can think more about how people use their resources in their local environments. And that's how I got into medical geography. And then over time, realizing the violence of the drug war, I wanted to, and I got back into the cannabis thing. I was especially interested in patients who were allowed by their doctors to use cannabis, but then were prosecuted for that same thing by the federal or even state or local authorities.
I testified in over 100 cases on behalf of patients as the uh, uh, medical record custodian. That was my title. And I would save our doctor, usually Dr. Orval, but we had some other doctors. We did have a naturopath once naturopaths were allowed in 2011, but I literally testified in over 100 different cases. In one case, in Franklin County, out in the Tri-Cities, there's this old guy, he's about 80. He had 2 plants in his yard. I went to court for him like 6 times over a period of a year before they finally threw the charges out against him because he had a permit, But I saw there was a learning curve that the big cities got it. They tried to arrest medical marijuana patients like Tacoma, and that they got, okay, we aren't doing that again. But the smaller cities, there's this learning curve, and it happened a lot slower with less population. But
that is so. I just talked yesterday to Douglas Hyatt. You probably know Doug Hyatt,
Oh,
the
yeah.
intrepid criminal defense attorney, and
Yeah.
he became my real good friend and still is. And he brought me along on all these cases that he was involved in 2004, 2005, 2006, all through like from 04 to really to 10 or 11. I had a lot of focused time because I was doing this research and I was interviewing patients and going to dispensaries and reviewing medical records and really trying to study it. But at the same time, I was also involved in legal matters, including cases that were in the Associated Press, people who got organ transplants denied, people who were taken across the border from Canada from a hospital. Steve Tuck he had a urinary catheter attached. He was in the hospital in Vancouver, and the Border Patrol took him to the U.S. and he withdrew on all of his pain. He's a spinal cord injured veteran, which withdrew all his medicines, and he was a mess when I saw him in the federal court holding. Anyway, all of these things really all opened my eyes to the extreme human rights violations, violence, structural violence, and that's also a focus of medicine and public health, is to stop people from getting hurt. Whether it's gun violence or a violence of a system that doesn't understand that something has value to somebody's life. Why would they go to such lengths to involve themselves in cannabis? There's lots of other ways to make money. And especially if you're using it for some purpose. So anyway, I kind of that got me really. But I have to say, my own personal focus on this is because I had used it myself and I found it helpful. And then somebody came and threatened to turn me into the police, that was doing work in my place and was upset at me for something or other. And I realized I have no recourse to the law. Like, nobody can help you if somebody wants to get you because you try to go for help. It's like, well, you're in trouble now.
Yeah.
And so
another thing I dealt with were medical board complaints. And so anytime our doctors had a medical board complaint, I would go to Granny Scarecrow's list. I would go there and I'd find the condition and I'd come up with 100 medical journal articles, and then I'd reply to the medical board on behalf of our doctors. Now, I found that I did, even though most of our patients were in other states, maybe Washington amounted to a quarter or a third of our business. We had a lot of business in Michigan and Oregon. In California, we had another office down in Riverside. But about 60 or 70% of my cases dealing with medical board complaints and defending patients who'd been wrongfully charged was in Washington. So Washington was much more hyper focused
Oh,
on
I don't,
doctors
you
and
can,
patients.
that doesn't surprise me. I've been
Yeah.
practicing as a Washington licensed doctor for a little while now, and I'm dealing with some of those issues, and I, I, I'm hoping, but this is unusual. Sometimes they keep cases open for a long time that aren't really with any merit. I can't talk about them, but I just think that it's kind of a, Dr. Mikaria and all those California doctors, they face the same thing. They would tell me all that, David Bierman and Philip Denny, and this would happen to them. And so I kind of just realized
Yeah.
that this comes
We
with the territory if you're in it.
We recently lost a couple of doctors that were licensed in both Oregon and Washington. Both cases were separate, but both of them had to do, one of them wasn't working with us, our current clinic anymore, but both of them had to do with helping pediatric autism patients. And
Wow.
even though I believe the medical board was violating the law regarding medical marijuana and going after doctors like that, they held that you can't recommend medical marijuana to pediatric autism patients. Ironically, right in the middle of that investigation, Dr. the CNN doctor
Sanjay Gupta. Sanjay Gupta.
did a special on, I think it was his 7th weed special on cannabis and autism, but they didn't.
Incredible.
Now,
Incredible.
I don't have any MDs or DOs working at our small operation in Portland, still in Oregon and Washington, but
Wow.
I have 3 naturopaths. Glad to hear
Yeah.
you're working with naturopaths. It's a different medical board than that deals with naturopaths than deal with MDs and DOs.
I remember people asking me in Oregon to be involved, these kind of they would cover autism under kind of a brain injury type condition concept.
Yeah.
There was I remember conversations around that. I thought we had similar kinds of aspects in Washington, but how we would think about it. But I'm not as familiar. I haven't seen any issues in that area because of I think the weed specials and the research out of Israel on autistic children. I mean, there's so much good evidence, and not to mention, just the individual outcomes you see when when things get titrated, there were less reliance on other medications that have toxic profiles, the usual. So I'm surprised to hear that. It's unfortunate, but it must have been some other family member that was upset or something. And
Yeah.
these are
Or another
complaint-driven
doctor.
things.
What I found, it's usually another doctor that files these sorts of complaints, And in this case, I think there was someone who was really gung-ho against medical marijuana on the Oregon Medical Board.
Oh, I see. Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's a problem. Well,
So,
hey, by the way,
you're an affiliate professor at University of Washington's Department of Geology, right?
Geography.
I can't. I feel stupid having repeated that mistake twice. Geography. And so, do you teach any classes? Have you been teaching classes?
No, not lately. I am available to sit on students' doctoral committees. So meaning like I can be an advisor to sign off on their PhD or master's thesis. And so far, no students have approached me lately to do that. Somebody was interested a while ago, but I guess they changed their mind. So right now I'm just kind of go to meetings and let people know what I do, and I'm interested in students. I'm a volunteer. I don't it's not a paid position. It's kind of a courtesy affiliate. So I have library privileges, and I'm interested in opportunities that arise there. That's my old alma mater. I really like staying connected with geographers. I think they do excellent cutting edge work. But I did teach a class on in a group called AWE, ecstatic mysticism. It was a global educational curriculum helping to get people familiar with end of life and death care and end of life care transition. I did four sessions over the summer and into the fall, and that was I had, I don't know, 60 students or 50 students, I don't know, some number like that, and really excellent, well attended, and so that I did do some teaching through that curriculum. It's not It wasn't at the University of Washington. I do enjoy teaching, and but I don't have a lot of time for it right now. So, but maybe in the future.
So is your main purview these days medical care for patients at the Ames Clinic?
Yes, and I'm also an affiliate. I'm an on-call physician for a system called Multicare. That's in a hospital system in Washington. It's the largest employer in Pierce County, Tacoma General Hospital, Good Samaritan Hospital in Puyallup, Allen Moore Hospital in Tacoma, Auburn Hospital in Auburn. So this is a system. There is a big system. It's not a denominational nonprofit healthcare system. And they have me as an on-call palliative care doctor. So
I
I've been going to the hospital 1 or 2 days a week and doing rounds there on inpatient palliative care consultation to help folks who are acutely ill in the ICU or other hospital
That's
areas, family meetings, pain relief. So I do that. Then hospice in the I'll take a little bit of call with the we have patients on home hospice or hospice in a nursing home, and they need doctors on call overnight in case somebody needs a medication refill or some issue arises that needs attention for. But hospice is mostly led, you probably know, by nurses, nurses, social workers, chaplains, and then doctors are just kind of like, like a backdrop. But we're also writing orders, and so I manage that. I do enjoy that work. I like taking care of folks at end of life to help improve their quality of life. So in addition to that job, then
That's
the rest of
very
it is
compassionate.
what's that?
That's very compassionate. I appreciate your doing that. In fact, my mother, just have to throw this in here, was director of surgery under Tacoma General and Mary Bridge Children's Hospital at the end of her career, the last 15 years of her career. She actually worked in my Bellevue Medical Marijuana Clinic for about 6 or 7 years, kind of running the operation there for a while after she retired from Mary Bridge. But
Amazing. I
there's
had no
another little,
idea. What a cool connection.
yeah,
I'll
another.
be there on Friday. I just think that's so special. I didn't know that you had such roots in Washington. I knew your Bellevue Clinic for a long time, but
Yeah, I lived in Washington first. My first bachelor's degree is from Evergreen State College. And so I blocked a white train carrying hydrogen bomb warheads to the Trident submarines on the first time that was done back in March 22nd of 1982.
I've seen pictures of that
83.
protest.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have seen pictures of that. Amazing. You were in that group.
I
Amazing.
was. I was.
I've blocked the entrance to the Bangor base
Oh,
once well after the trains got there and loaded the
yeah.
submarines and kept them there, and then we just like, can we stop people from going in there for on MLK Day? I didn't get arrested or anything, but I definitely have been focused on that stockpile of nuclear weapons, which is an extremely horrible situation that we have here in the world, really. And Trump just said he's going to start testing them again. Thankfully, the energy department said we're not going to do nuclear tests. We'll test other parts of it. But imagine a warhead like, oh, I'm just testing the delivery system. The warhead will be fine. Don't worry about the nuclear. It's still very dangerous to test these weapons. Let alone keep them on hair trigger alert. And I've been very active in that. Just trying to do. I don't know. It's very hard to do a lot there aside from join organizations and vote and be politically active. But it is extremely. I'm so happy to hear that you know about that. I mean, Texan. That's crazy. That's pretty.
Well,
that's
that's
pretty
the
impressive.
Pantex Corporation, Amarillo, is where those nuclear warheads came from. And so it's a long story. If you want to read more on it, just look up how are blocking a payload of death. And my name, Paul Stanford, blocking a payload of death. It'll tell the story a little bit
I
better.
look forward to that. I'm so happy to hear that. Frank Lucido also did that kind of stuff. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. I know of him, and we've met a few times, but I didn't realize he was real. A lot of doctors are, fortunately. One of our naturopaths at work here, her husband, who's an MD and an ND, he also had done similar anti-nuke activities.
Yeah, there's no cure. Prevention is the only cure. There's no reason for us to do this. No logical. I went to the International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War World Congress in 2006 or 7 in Helsinki. I met Gorbachev's personal physician, Yevgeny Chazov, and who had a relationship with a doctor, a cardiologist, I think it was Bernie Lown in America, and they were single-handedly responsible for kind of convincing some of Gorbachev's era to lower, start to detente and stop the global mutually assured destruction nuclear arms race that bloated everybody's budgets, and just was a huge there is an important role for public health physicians and health workers and activists, and we have to. It's like it's getting worse, actually. So anyway, that's a separate topic. But I always used to compare seeds of death, like fissile nuclear materials, and seeds of plants, like the cannabis plant behind you. It's like we regulate the seeds of plants, like cannabis and coca and other plants that are the way that we should be regulating fissile nuclear materials. They should be on lockdown, and we should be limiting the distribution and everything. So I always, it's an interesting comparison between how we regulate extremely dangerous weapons of mass destruction and healing herbs that may destroy or shake up your default mode network, your psychology. That's what's so dangerous about cannabis and psilocybin spores and all these things, is that they just kind of change your orientation, your awareness of self and other for a little while. And when you do that, you might revisit a certain idea that you had that was really fixed, like I believe in President, I'm not going to say Trump, like Obama, let's say, because he's just the greatest there is. And then I had a mushroom trip. And I'm not really sure I agreed with his drone strikes in Afghanistan or something, or the torture program in Guantanamo. He never shut that down. Actually, well, what's he doing? Why is he doing that? And talking like he knows everything when he carried on horrible. I don't know, something you could say. But politically, that is a real threat to the.
That's it. They don't want people to think about things. They want us just to believe, and for another old friend of mine, John Trudell, Native American poet and songwriter, he said, believe less and think more. And there's a lie right in the middle of believe, be live.
I love that. Believe less and think more. I'm writing that down.
John Trudell, you can attribute it to him.
Okay, good. I do think it's important that so that's why I want to bring cannabis and these drug issues into a larger framework of social issues, because we also struggle in that way. Oh, this is just a side issue. I remember when Obama was president, everybody was like, hey, on these online town halls, everybody wants him to address marijuana, and he would just laugh it off. Oh, well, we got more important things to worry about than marijuana. We need to worry about, the economy or something. But it's actually very connected when you look at like how many things it touches. I'm sure you're aware, your listeners are aware, but the more we can make linkages to things like war or economy or just in general healthcare, access, cognitive liberty, I just think that we'll be better suited. Because I do think who owns such valuable medicines. Cannabis is, I remember the Economist magazine said, if bioprospectors found cannabis today, just in a cliff, and that it did all these medical properties, it would be hailed as this huge medical breakthrough, and it'd be worth more than gold. It would just be such a powerful agent of healing and utility. And so that's still true, but then who?
I'll attribute another famous quote. I think you've heard me use it before, from the late great Gatewood Galbraith, Kentucky attorney, who introduced
he was great.
the Willie Nelson back when. But it's the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate elite, fascist sons of a bitches who created marijuana prohibition. And in some crowds, I don't want to say fascist sons of a bitches. So instead, I'll put in the crony capitalist ruling class. Means the same thing. But
Crony capitalism, and that's good. Oh, you gotta. I forgot he used to talk like that.
Yeah.
Kentucky Gatewood Galbraith. Yeah, I remember him. I met him at Hempfest. What a character! Oh my God.
yeah, he was. I met
Yeah.
he's another person with Todd McCurry. I met at that White House smoke-in in '78 when I was
Oh.
just a teenager. There were,
Oh, I
there
didn't
were
realize he
thousands
was
of
that
us
far.
there then too. It was when Jimmy Carter was
Oh,
president.
yeah, you guys had a moment there, and certainly it was post Watergate, and there was definitely you had a peanut farmer president who was willing
Kids
to
were smoking
actually,
pot on the roof with Willie Nelson and others. Well,
right,
we've
right.
got
So there was
about 5 minutes or so left here, Sunil. So what's the future? It sounds like you're very busy with palliative care and the Pierce County hospital system and your own AIM Institute's care of patients. What's your next few goals over the near and longer term future?
Well, right now I have a rescheduling petition for psilocybin that's currently under review at the Health and Human Services, the United States Department of Health and Human Services, that the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, forwarded on to them for a report and a recommendation for scheduling. When that gets done, and I don't know how many months with the government shut down, who's actually doing anything, related to that right now. But as soon as that gets done, that's going to go back to the DEA, and then the DEA administrator is going to decide, oh, well, the official health authority thinks psilocybin should be Schedule 2. Right now, it's in Schedule 1. I mean, maybe we should make a rule, tell everybody when we're going to make a rule to change the schedule of psilocybin. That's what I'm hoping is going to happen, because there's lots of evidence that supports its use in palliative care, by the way, for people dealing with existential distress, with anxiety, depression, and other conditions too. But I'm just kind of been focused on that. And so when that comes back from the HHS and the DEA has a rulemaking, hopefully notice, then there'll be a public comment period. So anybody listening will be able to leave a public comment, either vocal, in person, or virtual, or online. Yeah, and that's like a legal record that shows that people really want the government. They support this change, and hopefully people in Oregon, you guys already have legal psilocybin for services, but it's very hard to reach for some people, cost-wise, getting the expensive. Yeah. So this is like a change that would go at the federal level, and that could have some ripple effects in terms of how the states do it, and access, and medical use, and things like that. So that's kind of right now I'm in a holding pattern, waiting for that next step to occur. But we went to court 3 times, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So
Thanks for your work in that. I'm going to have to cut us off here, Sunil. We're reaching the end of our time for our television studio, but keep up the good work. It's been a real pleasure and honor speaking with you. If you're ever down here in Portland, then maybe you can stop in my office, and we'll spend a little time one-on-one. Otherwise, I'm sure I'll see you on the internet. Sunil Aggarwal with the AIM Institute, and a geographer with the University of Washington. And I think we could go on talking for another hour, but
have me back. I'm happy to come back. This is great, Paul. Anytime, and if you're in Seattle, please don't hesitate to stop in as well.
I'll try. My daughter works up there. She's got a pretty nice job. I won't brag about it here, but anyway. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good night, Sunil.
Bye-bye, Bill. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Yeah, she